Wait. Thank you. Thank you very much, folks. Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. I think we've got the problem solved. I am Nigel Casimir, Deputy Secretary General at the CTU Secretariat in Port of Spain, and I'll be helping take you through the afternoon's proceedings. As I said, we would have to move efficiently through the afternoon's program because we have a set time to end so that they'll have enough time for preparations for the opening ceremony this evening. So without further ado, just to let you know that this afternoon we'll be having a series of technology presentations and 2 panels. And we'll begin with some presentations that my colleague, Ms. Nia Nanan, who is the Senior Research Analyst at the CTU Secretariat, would take us through. So I'd like to invite Nia to come forward. Where is Nia? Oh, there she is. Yes, okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to jump right into our sponsor presentations. We'd like to thank all our sponsors who are valued partners in advancing digital transformation efforts in the region. They play a vital role in supporting the success of ICT Week and in driving innovation and connectivity throughout the Caribbean. So in this session, we will invite 4 of our sponsors to share brief insights into their ongoing initiatives and contributions with succinct, impactful 12-minute presentations. We have 2 of our gold sponsors, the Inter-American Development Bank and Data Access, a bronze sponsor, Precision Cyber Technologies and Digital Solutions Limited, and we also have Paradise Mobile Limited. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Mr. Pau Gabarro, Senior Telecommunications Specialist, Connectivity, Markets, and Finance Division at the IDB, to deliver his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to the CTU for the kind invitation, and to all of you for being here, being part of this great CTU ICT Week. So my name is Pau Puig Gabarro. I work at the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, and the IDB has recently launched an initiative called One Caribbean, which seeks strengthening the links between Caribbean countries for shared prosperity and growth to reach development impact. And an important way of operationalizing such institutional initiatives are the so-called Caribbean Regional Digital Infrastructure Plan that we've started to prepare. I would like to share with you some of its main characteristics. We all know that digital infrastructure, including submarine cables, data centers, fiber optics, underpin the digital economy, the AI development. Here we go. The AI development, digital public services, and sustained economic growth. And there's a need of taking action immediately because these technologies advance at such a rapid pace that if we don't accelerate the development of digital infrastructure in the Caribbean, unfortunately, we'll miss some very important opportunities in terms of regional innovation, economic transformation, economic growth, and transformation. And we also need, of course, close collaboration between Caribbean stakeholders, because otherwise the Caribbean faces risks of technological dependency, reduced competitiveness, and digital exclusion. Of course, these regional plans have to be aligned with both national and regional priorities, and that's in the center of this plan. Just taking a stock where we are in the two main digital infrastructure types: digital connectivity infrastructure and digital data infrastructure. Unfortunately, the Latin American and Caribbean region is lagging behind other regions such as Europe, North America, and Asia. And therefore, these are the two main pillars of the regional plan that we're envisioning here: data centers and international connectivity. These are two key digital infrastructure for the future. Let's just start with international connectivity. And this is the current active submarine cable system serving the Caribbean. There's a challenge, though. We see that about half of them are either already beyond or about to reach its expected end of life, which, as you know, is about 25 years. This is definitely a worry, and we can take a closer look at it. Sorry, I'd like to go back. Yeah. These are the 10 submarine cables that are about to lose its peak of performance and affecting most of Caribbean countries. This is definitely bad news for many of the ones who are here, but there's also some good news. There's some opportunities, since several new submarine cable systems are going to be deployed in the coming months and years, and they are going to connect Caribbean countries with some of the main cloud regions, which, as we can see, are based in Florida, the south of Mexico, and the north of Colombia. So these new systems are going to connect populations with the digital content that those aim to consume. However, those are private sector-led investments, and they don't always reach all the Caribbean countries. They are selective according to their legitimate private sector commercial incentives. So in some cases, the dialogue between private sector and public sector is essential to triangulate and try to identify low-hanging fruits that could bring long-lasting digital international connectivity to all Caribbean countries. And the Inter-American Development Bank is in a good position because it handles both the dialogue between private and sector stakeholders and can help triangulate and even mobilize investments to make sure that those opportunities benefit all the Caribbean countries. Let's now take a look at the other type of infrastructure, data centers. The first challenge here is lack of data, but this quick assessment, which comprises only 7 countries, which are the 7 countries which are members both of the CTU of the IDB. That's why we narrowed down the analysis to this subset of countries. We see that there's lack of data infrastructure, and where it is, we're not certain that those are at least tier 3, which would be the minimum level for e-government services and a certain availability levels. Therefore, this is definitely a challenge. And eventually, each Caribbean country will need to build its own resilient, energy efficiency edge data center, because for certain digital services and for certain data, the main cloud regions that we saw in Mexico, Colombia, and Florida are not enough. For sensitive data, such as taxation, public health records, or national security data, perhaps some countries wouldn't prefer having those data in their own national territory. And also for certain digital applications will require very low latency. You want to have those data in those applications in your own country. Therefore, edge data centers, which are the data centers that complement the main cloud regions, are needed. And what are the main technical requirements for those edge data center? Secure land, 24/7 energy supply, hopefully from green sources, at least 2 connectivity to submarine cable landing stations, aiming to connect populations to the main cloud regions through the main submarine cable highways, and of course complying with key international standards and best practices. Those requirements could bring also some opportunities in terms of attracting foreign direct investment, developing a regional digital hub, and as we were mentioning before, enabling digital sovereignty, which is key. So this regional Caribbean digital infrastructure plan is not the only one that we are working on. We're working on an Andean, for the Andean countries, regional digital infrastructure plan, and a South American regional digital infrastructure plan. And we also do the same at the national level. We have completed a Belize digital infrastructure plan that we're going to share now very briefly. And we're working on the Bahamas and another in Ecuador. So this is something that we're trying to do across the region. Just for you to have an idea, the document for release has already been finished, and next month is going to be socialized with key stakeholders in the country. And we add an additional pillar beyond data center and international connectivity. On those national plans, we also take care of national connectivity. How do we do this? With the methodology, thanks of georeference data, we can identify where public institutions are, where population is, where digital infrastructure is, in order to identify the gaps, assess the investment needed to reach those gaps, and estimate what's the economic benefit of those. And we do this in the 3 pillars: national connectivity, international connectivity, and data center. In short, the main outcome of it is an investment estimate. In this case, we've hidden the figures because we have not socialized the plan yet. It will do so next week. But the good news is that for each one of the other 6 countries that belong to the CTU and to the IDB, we've prepared a brief 2-pager executive version of a national digital infrastructure plan that we'll be very happy to share with you. This basically captures the essence of those plans, aiming at identifying the main gaps, suggesting investments in these 3 pillars, and finally assessing the estimate in terms of GDP growth, for instance, in terms of impact. Those 2 pages that, again, are ready, and we'll hand them over to you in the upcoming days. We're looking forward to discuss them with you. Let's start by an international and regional benchmark, and then in each one of these 3 pillars, again, national connectivity, international connectivity, data center, a quick diagnostic of opportunities and challenges, identifying what are the investments needed to take advantage of those opportunities, and assessing the impact in GDP growth resulting of investing in those opportunities. Finally, a brief announcement. We're partnering also with the International Telecommunications Union, and on a Thursday morning, we're going to have a P2C, a partner to connect matchmaking accelerator workshop for Jamaica, for the host country. So anyone interested in potential investments in the digital infrastructure sector in Jamaica is most welcome. Thank you very much for the attention, and to the CTU for the close collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have Mr. Gulshan Nahar, CEO Data Access, who is going to speak to us on geospatial knowledge infrastructure.
Good afternoon. I'm very honored to be here with you today at CTU's ICT Week 2025. And I'm more honored to already hearing that we as the Caribbean are already collaborating and working together towards a knowledge-connected, driven Caribbean. Okay. Today, I'm going to talking to you about geospatial knowledge infrastructure. My name is Gulshan Nahar. I'm the CEO of Data Access, and we're going to explore today what geospatial knowledge infrastructure is, what it is about, and how it will impact the Caribbean. What are our challenges and opportunities, how it will be the driver for the Caribbean for well-being, and how data access is already making its contributions to this roadmap. Data access. We are a software development company and data science company. Our vision is to empower organizations to impact socio-economic growth. And we are specialized in reaching this goal in geospatial knowledge infrastructure. Geospatial knowledge infrastructure, I'm gonna be read this. It is the digital foundation that connects location-based data to decision-making. It connects communities, government, and businesses in taking rapid and accurate decisions. It is the foundation that supports the journey from raw information to intelligence to understanding. If you catch Jamaica, for example, you have its natural resources information at the bottom. On top of that, you have its urban planning and building information. On top of that, you have infrastructure, utilities, telecom infrastructure. And another layer is the economy, the building, the banks, and where the money comes from. But it's not only about mapping. It's about where the things are happening, why they matter, and how we can plan and execute accordingly. That is what geospatial infrastructure is about. What are our regional challenges? We have disaster risk management and climate resilience, land and use and development, sustainable economy development and tourism, protection against pandemics, and coastal and marine management. All these areas, location-based is very important. Without geospatial knowledge infrastructure, our decisions are less accurate, more expensive, and will be very slow in impacting the economy. Now I'm going to show you what data access is doing on behalf of geospatial knowledge infrastructure. Do you have some volume in the video? Do you ever dwell on the concept of space? The dimension of the world? Or all the forms it takes? Space is everywhere, but it's not infinite. We need to be smart about the use and the setup of space, so you can establish where the border runs between you and your neighbor. That the ground on which your house stands is really yours. That pipes, primary schools, and all offices are built in the right place, and that the rights that apply to each centimeter are clear. Data access aims to provide small and big countries with the opportunity to participate in the digital age of geodata. In 70% of the world, property registration is not yet in place nor up to date. So our software is compatible with any device and contributes to having everything above and below the ground be organized and rapidly accessible. We assist countries seeking to organize land management, government property management, building permit management, public housing, and pipeline management. In addition, we register an infinite amount of geodata. With this data, we can help with social issues like, is there an aging population in a residential area? Or is a disease particularly common in that area? Geodata is of great value to society and usable for everyone, so a country can develop, grow, and get the assurance it needs to build the future. That is what data access helps you achieve. Yes, so Data Access is very excited about keep contributing to the Caribbean in building those kinds of platforms that will impact socioeconomic growth. What we are doing specifically, we are working with the islands to build in digital twins of the telecom towers in order to help in the event of disaster recovery. We are building the geodata platform for nations with the cadasters and all land management organizations. We are helping setting up an association for the cadasters. We're supporting the CTU in the spectrum harmonization roadmap, and we are working together with the data centers to harness that data and keep it protected at the location in the Caribbean. That's what we are working on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'd now like to invite Dr. Ronald Walcott, who is the Managing Director at Precision Cyber Technologies and Digital Solutions Limited. He's going to speak to us about strengthening the Caribbean cyber resilience.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here. I want to thank Rodney and his team for allowing Precision to be able to participate in this week-long event. Last time we were here, myself, in Jamaica was a couple months ago when we launched an initiative with the University of West Indies to build a cybersecurity lab. We made that commitment and investment of over 75,000 US to focus on this lab. We expect that lab to be completed by the end of this year. And UB was very keen on the lab being focused on reverse engineering cyber attacks that occur in Jamaica primarily, but in the Caribbean in general. We're also doing a similar lab in Trinidad with the University of Trinidad and Tobago. I say that because our focus as Precision Cyber is really not about selling solutions and services. It's not really about that. It is about how do we improve the cyber resilience of the region. And I've heard a number of conversations today about cyber and AI and various infrastructure resilience and so on. And very often, when we talk about cybersecurity, we try to put a spin on it, for us who in the business, we have this challenge, because we talk about stats. And there are a lot of stats that we can put out there, whether it's $10.5 trillion in cybercrime cost, or 60-70% of businesses would have experienced some type of cyber attack in the last year, the cost of an impact and what happens there, etc. There's a global cyber event every 11 seconds. But really, for me, the issue is that cyber attacks can be very fundamental. It can affect lives. We've seen where cyber attacks can disrupt air traffic. We've seen where cyber attacks can impact your health system and your healthcare system. It can, in fact, infrastructure, electricity, and so on, particularly in the OT space, which was mentioned earlier, which there isn't enough focus on, in my opinion, also. And so, how do we deal with this increase in cyber activities? It's a challenge. And the challenge is that it's I sort of call it a paradox, the cybersecurity paradox. This paradox is that cybersecurity is a negative goal. You do well when nothing happens. And the fact that you do well when nothing happens, it's hard to convince people and hard to convince organizations, it's hard to convince governments that you really need to invest in cybersecurity. Building a space where nothing happens. I heard someone mention earlier that cybersecurity is like insurance. It's not really. Insurance does not prevent risk. Insurance does not reduce risk. Insurance compensates you for loss. That's what insurance really does. So, you can try and form a parallel there, but really, cybersecurity is about how do we reduce this risk. And the risk is real. But even more so, we spent a lot of time talking about artificial intelligence and the growth and development, and my colleague at Fortinet mentioned a very important fact. The fact is that whilst you can use AI for a lot of good, and we're moving in that direction, we have to, along with the digital transformation, so too are the bad actors. We've seen now, where very recently, this new type of cyber attack which renders endpoint detection and response systems. And those of you who understand what those EDR systems mean, you know that they are a foundational solution and a foundational tool that we all advocate and put out there. But we've seen where they can actually make those systems go to sleep now. So only to say that the sophistications of the attacks are becoming more and more prevalent, and it's only going to get worse, it's only going to become more so. We in the region, though, have to accept that this is here, it's not something that's coming, it's something that's here. And one of the messages I wanted to convey today, more than anything else, is less about us as precision. I'll get into that very quickly because I know it's kind of a long day. What we're seeing, and I was happy to see that Ireland are doing the same thing, we need to have more robust policies and framework and laws that protect organizations, that protect businesses, and that protect the government and the people from cyber attacks. Because left to people's own devices, they are not going to do what's actually necessary. And I would think that a forum like this and others such as these would be able to do so. I've looked at a lot of papers from the ITU and the OAS and different CARICOM's entities that really is advocating the need for us to become a lot more resilient. But that resilience can't be, in my mind, just left up to people's own whims and fancies. It's something that really should be implemented as policy at least. Maybe not as laws just yet, but certainly there needs to be a cohesive approach to policy making around compliance with data protection, as we've seen here in Jamaica and in Barbados to some extent. And I know people are looking at different ways of doing it. So we are Precision Cyber. We are a managed security services provider. We provide a full range of solutions. What I want to say is that we are regional. We operate in almost all of the islands, headquartered in Trinidad. As I said, we recently launched an initiative here. We do have an office here in Jamaica, in Barbados, Guyana, Antigua, etc. And, we have a full range of products and services. I don't want to talk too much about that. We have a booth out there that we can talk more about. We have all the certifications necessary. But what I want to talk about is, quickly, some of the commentators today spoke about partnerships. And I actually think it's very important. So how we structured our organization, we're under a few pillars. And one of the things that we did is we built a first world cyber fusion center. It's headquartered in Trinidad. We're building a hub here in Jamaica also, because one of the challenges that a number of organizations face in the region, we all, 70% of the region's economic development and growth revenue comes from small and medium enterprises. And sometimes they found it to be challenging to be able to afford and to have the scale of cybersecurity. And so we took the initiative on to say, regardless of whether you have 5 employees, 5,000, 50,000, it really should not matter. You should be able to be afforded the same level of cybersecurity and protection to mitigate against the risk and the ever-growing risk that's there. And so when we built the Cyber Fusion Center, we built it with that in mind, bringing first world capabilities, functionalities, XDR, AI, and all of the other automated systems that exist, but along with some of the other solutions that we have. And we do have a demo outside that we can talk about. We also able to do this because we have, as part of Precision Cyber, we have 50 plus international partners because we believe in partnership. And our mission is really to partner with organizations, to partner with governments, because, again, one of the commentators said so earlier, we really should let the people who are best at doing what they do what they do, and you focus on what you do. So we actually believe in partnerships. We have a number of organizations. We work with large conglomerates, governments, national security, etc. But also, we also represent more than 100 different brands, which is very unique. We have access to more than 250 engineers, and we established that specifically to be able to provide the technical and engineering support for the brands that we have. And so, really, my message here, briefly, is we just need to consider that we have this paradox. Cybersecurity is a negative goal. It works best when nothing happens. It's a hard sell because unlike other types of investment where you can actually see a return, it's harder. But the truth is, it's the same. You can say the same with research and development. You have to begin to think of cybersecurity not as a cost, but as an investment in securing your revenue, in securing a reputation, in the ability to develop and grow. And if you're going to grow internationally, then it's a requirement to operate in some areas. To facilitate that, I do believe that governments should be a little more rigid and stringent in the implementation of policies, and to provide incentives to businesses to actually invest in their cybersecurity posture. Ultimately, it's about your peace of mind as we all develop and we grow into digital and we grow in AI and we do infrastructural resilience. We should always keep cyber top of mind. Thank you.
Thank you. And rounding out this session, we'll now invite Mr. Sam Tabara, Chief Executive Officer at Paradise Mobile Limited, to speak to us on innovation, competition, and consumer impact.
Good afternoon, everybody. Before I get through the slides, and I promise I will go fast, I want to introduce Adrian Lee Chin, who's a key board member and strategic advisor being in Jamaica. I'd like him to say a few words before we get into the presentation.
Thank you, Sam. I'm Adrian Lee Chin. The reason why I'm here is because I'm a director of Paradise Mobile. My interest in telecommunications started at a very young age. In 1996, I used to love gaming, first-person shooters. And one of the most important things in online gaming is having a very fast internet connection, having a low latency. And I always wondered, why do some people have a lower latency than me? And it's because they had a T1 line. Me, I had a 56K modem. So it was at that time I became very interested in the different technologies, and I knew what it could do once they came to my community. A second part of my life, in my adolescence, is actually where I met Sam, my co-founder of Paradise Mobile, university. It was also a time when my father made an investment into a company called Columbus Communications, and I was able to see firsthand how that company was able to impact economies through its service. Third part of my life, when I became an adult, I got a phone call from Kareem Bakit, another one of my co-founders, and he told me that he's interested in bringing telecom to the Caribbean. I said, how are you going to do that when you have Digicel and Flow here? And he explained to me the business model, the technology, and then I was instantly hooked. And so now what makes me fulfilled is that I found my purpose. And my purpose is not only in reducing the digital divide and latency, but it's also doing it for the community and not myself. And so that's why I'm happy to be involved with Paradise Mobile. We're bringing 5G to the Caribbean using American technology. We're a profitable business, and we have no debt. And so, thank you.
All right, guys. So very quickly, the Paradise story. We started in 2019 in Bermuda, and shortly after in the Cayman Islands as a licensed facilities-based operator. Where we are today, Bermuda has launched, and we are growing very fast, almost 10% month over month. In Cayman, we are the build has started, and we expect to launch in 2026. I do see some familiar faces. We're not ready to announce, but we do plan on announcing next year 6 more markets in the CARICOM region. This slide was actually shared last year at St. Kitts and Nevis at the last AGM for the CTU. And it basically summarized the existential crisis, I would say, of the legacy business model of telcos. If anything, it's actually gotten extensively more complicated and worse with the legacy business model because of all the topics that we've heard today, such as fast-moving innovations like AI. The idea that the challenges would be capacity or getting your fair share on a per gigabyte very quickly is being eroded to the realities that are coming up with these fast-moving innovations. Everyone just take a moment and look at where most of your phones are. Some of you guys are in your hands, but the rest of you guys, it's sitting down and idle. 95% of the time, these connected devices are barely using any network capacity. And yet the legacy networks are struggling to support them at peak times. Where we're going, when we're talking about AI to AI communication, when we're talking about networks that are no longer optimized for download, but everything is always on, all the time, communicating with everything, IoT everywhere, whether it's the glasses sitting on your face with a camera that's real-time interfacing and interpreting it with edge compute, or whether it's all the other devices that will be talking to all the other devices. AI isn't about creating more content or making you more efficient. It's fundamentally changing the DNA of how networks actually have to be built to be able to survive. A little bit of background on Paradise. We launched in Bermuda. We built a nationwide network in less than a year. And we did it very differently than traditional telcos. We built it completely cloud native, completely virtualized, and completely software driven. In fact, the only thing that is proprietary in our network are the antennas and the radios because we don't live in the matrix and those can't be software. The impact of this was we were able to start innovating at the speed of a startup in the cloud versus a traditional telco, and I'm sure many of you guys are very familiar with the innovation cycles of having to do an RFP to get a vendor to spend millions of dollars deploying for years something, and now you're stuck in a vendor's roadmap, and you have 2 options. You either wait for that vendor to support a feature and integrate it for you because you don't even have control over those boxes, those black boxes, or you rip it all out and deploy somebody else's. We hit fastest network in Bermuda with peak speeds almost at 2 gigs down to the handset within our first 6 months of launch. But 6 months later, we doubled our speeds again. Not with more spectrum, not with some additional sites, but predominantly because we built better algorithms to optimize that network to give the correct use cases and the correct KPIs to those users even in times of traditional congestion. We are not just the most awarded network globally in the region, but we are definitely winning the accolades also internally from both private and public sector. For transparency, the people behind us and that have invested in this vision and that have come on board as advisors to this company You guys heard from Adrian a few moments ago, but we have some of the key players in the last 20 years that have disrupted telco and moved it forward. Everyone from the former C-levels, from T-Mo, from Sprint, from SoftBank, from France Telecom, from the CEO of Alcatel-Lucent. And the reason all of these guys have come on board is they recognize two key problems. Number one, traditional telcos are very good at sweating their assets and providing stable returns. Where they struggle is innovation and speed to market. What we've built is the most agile, flexible network in the world to be able to build new products and services to solve real problems in the markets that we're in, and then be able, because it's cloud, be able to lift and shift and license and white label those products and services globally. Some of our key partners are some of the biggest hyperscalers in the world. We've heard a lot of interesting discussions even today and in the industry in general on how do you partner. And the reality is you have platforms that have so much software potential. You need to find the right way to integrate with them to accelerate that innovation. This is absolutely a place where 1 + 1 is bigger than 2. And I'll give you guys a couple of examples. When we first launched, we actually licensed Amazon Stack from bare metal up in Bermuda. That meant the same Kubernetes stack, the same software stack that was running in public cloud was running in our data center. And because we had no commodity hardware, it was running underneath the cell site as well on hardened Dell x86 commodity servers. Since that time, we've now evolved and we are multi-cloud. And some of you guys may be aware that with this platform that we have in Bermuda, Google has significantly invested their own undersea cables, their own data center. And all of this is really an ecosystem that's being built where 1 + 1 is much bigger than 2. Let's talk just very bluntly, what does that mean from a consumer perspective? We had a duopoly in Bermuda, and some of you guys can probably resonate with the situation. The incumbents were not interested in investing because they weren't interested in innovating, and they had already gotten market share. So they were basically becoming the pipe, and there was no incentive or business case to invest more because they weren't going to make more. They told the regulator in most of these markets that we're talking, I need government incentives or subsidies to justify my investment further. What's super interesting is in every market that we got a license, the other guys found the money and deployed 5G. So I think the punchline is when you have competition, everybody benefits. You don't actually even need to be with the third carrier. You just need a third carrier. We launched with all unlimited data plans from day one. We didn't charge overages. The other guys followed. We launched included roaming. We didn't charge bill shock fees. We didn't charge long distance rates. We launched with a very different pricing model on the consumer side, which was more a Netflix SaaS model where you had a small, medium, large, but no matter how many shows you watch, you'd pay the same amount every month. You either had the option of that feature or you didn't, and that's it, and you had that bill certainty and that control. The other guys have followed but never deployed the amount of functionality that we had, partially because of legacy systems and partially because of legacy revenue that they didn't want to erode. In Bermuda alone, we had the highest ARPU in the world. The average revenue per user was $175 US per month. Since we launched, we have dropped that by over 30%, and every month, and even this month with the announcements we're going to have, that number will continue to decrease because of competition. I just want to talk a little bit about what are the real-world impacts to having a flexible, agile software network. One of the very interesting use cases we had last September, SailGP is basically Formula One on water. I don't know, how many people have ever watched SailGP? Awesome. So for those of you guys that are familiar with the brand, they have global races all around the world. we actually secured the first ever training camp in Bermuda in large part because we were the only ones that could meet the network requirements in the time that they needed them. I don't know if we can switch to a quick video just to show a highlight of that training camp.
Everything we control and we learn on the water whilst we're sailing the boat is all done through data.
We're partnering with SailGP because, like SailGP, Paradise Mobile wants to challenge the status quo and doesn't want to wait for tomorrow what we can have today.
We're here specifically to learn about a new foil that we're using. So long, fast, reliable data is the only way that we can do that.
These boats have over 300 different sensors that are all interconnected, and we're connecting not just those sensors, but all the cameras, all the communications and comms and systems together to make this training camp possible.
Speed is the name of our game. We couldn't hold this training program without that help from Paradise.
This is much more than just sailing. It's about really showing what's possible when you push the limits on technology and in vision.
Awesome. And one last use case. Last year, we had the introduction of our first national airline in Bermuda. One of the biggest challenges they had was connectivity for all of their cockpit systems and all of their ground crews. By switching over to a customized solution that we deployed in the cloud for them, we're actually able to improve on-time departures by 30% in the first 6 months. These are the types of problems you can solve when you actually own your code, when you own your platform, and you're not reliant on a black box vendor with the closed systems and closed protocols and non-standard solutions. Our network is completely cloud native, but is also Open RAN. It's also AI RAN certified. It's also running all using open source tools. This is truly what I mean when I say microservices and cloud native. We have, for those of the engineers in the room, we have a single pane of glass that we ingest every single piece of data from every single domain, from every single department in real time. We don't rely on network management systems from certain vendors with proprietary databases. That ability alone to be able to triage and understand and do self-optimization and self-healing and build algorithms to predict issues before customers experience them is a game changer. And finally, the real piece here, guys, for us to be able to build these next-gen innovations, it really starts in the communities that we're in with investing in the next generation. We've signed a 5-year memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Education where we're helping not just with externships and internships and building curriculum in high schools and colleges, but also with the biggest intern program in Bermuda in the space to help people that are interested in these fast-moving innovations be aware of them, get hands-on experience so that they can be the next generation of the next products and services, whether they work for Paradise or not. It actually doesn't even matter to us because what we really understand is a floating tide floats all boats. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We are cognizant of our time crunch this afternoon with the restrictions of the room, but we would like to invite you to engage with our sponsors. They are available at your convenience throughout the rest of the week. So thank you again to our sponsors, and with that, I'd like to pass back over to our Deputy Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Nia, and I'm sure you found those presentations quite interesting. In fact, I certainly did. We'll move on now to the first panel of the afternoon, and we'll be looking at satellite connectivity. There's been a lot of innovation and new services introduced in satellite communications in recent years, and we're going to hear a bit about that. So for this panel, it will be moderated by Dr. Maria Myers-Hamilton, who is the Managing Director of the Spectrum Management Authority right here in Jamaica. And with her, she will have Ms. Isabel Mauro, who is the Director General of the Global Satellite Operators Association, or the GSOA as they are fondly called. We'll also welcome Mr. Gonzalo de Dios, who is the head of licensing and international regulatory affairs for Project Kuiper of Amazon. Amazon has launched this low Earth orbiting satellite system, Project Kuiper they call it. So we'll hear a bit about that. And your agenda might be mentioning Ms. Gabriela Lago, but she would not be with us this afternoon, unfortunately. But she would be, well, I guess replaced by or represented by, or we have I don't have to say an affiliate, but certainly someone who works closely with Viasat, Mr. Brian Carter from Westbury Global. So I will hand over now to Maria to work with her panel. Maria.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Mic check. Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome. First of all, I'd like to really thank all of you for hanging around. It has been a day filled with quite a bit of information. And most importantly, when we get information as leaders, it is no use if it just sits with us. We're looking at a very, very critical topic, which is very passionate to me because I've found my purpose. My purpose is to make sure that the unconnected and the underserved are actually connected in my lifetime. This is a passion of mine, and it's one thing that every time I get a chance to speak about it, I hope people listen. We hear of all the different things about technology can do, but we have people who are in rural communities who do not know what the internet is. What if we could have connectivity for all? And I do believe that we could have this. It's not a reality anymore. If I could have a picture up, because the future is here. The future is now. We can all collaborate in the space and to make this a reality. Because right now and here, everyone needs to be connected. It's now a birthright. So my panel today will be looking at questions, and then you must pause and stop us if you want to ask questions. I know we're in between the cocktail party and, and having fun. But I believe it's a very important thing for all of us, the leaders in the room. All of us can make an impact. So satellite connectivity, the option for closing the digital divide. Fact, fiction, what do you think? So we're going to explore, if someone could bring up a picture that we could see. And I will say to you, to everyone, the cheese has moved. There was a pivotal point, and that point was 2020, when we had the pandemic. Then a push forced everyone to be in the center frame, center line, and had to be connected for the mere survival of it. We found that in Jamaica, before this, we had a seminar and a number of things. So this will come out in the discussion, where in 2019, I believe, Brian, you were at the FCC, and you came in and we did a presentation on telemedicine to rural communities using satellite technologies. We went as far as to connect us at the foothills of the Blue Mountain Peak, a small community called Mullet Hall. So in 2019, we were on the cusp of actually intertwining broadband telecommunications with satellite telecommunications. So my panelists, Isabel, Gonzalez, and Brian, we have one question first. How are space-based solutions transforming the future of connectivity? We're going to start with you first. Ladies first.
Starting with me. Thank you, Maria, and good afternoon, everybody. I share your passion, and you know, my passion for the last, I've been in the tech sector for the last 30 years, and one of the priorities when I was working in the mobile industry, when I then moved to the World Economic Forum, leading the ICT and tech industry, and then to satellite, has always been connecting the unconnected. And when I moved to the satellite industry 3 years ago, It's because I really, really believed in the power of satellite. And so when you ask, is it a fact or a fiction? For me, it's definitely a fact, and I couldn't be any prouder to work, in this industry. I think it's no secret for anybody how much the satellite industry has been innovating. We are going through, I think we've heard it many times, really it's a renaissance of the satellite industry, it's a rebirth of this industry. And I think there is a reason for this. And the reason is that we still have 2.6 billion people in the world that are not online. Furthermore, if you look at the coverage, we hear a lot about the population coverage. 96% of the population is covered. So praise to the mobile industry for that. But that still means that this coverage only represents 20% of the surface on Earth, meaning 80% still needs to be covered. And that's where, as the satellite industry, really have an incredible gap to fill and role to play and complementarity. I think it's really time to look at, when we looked at satellite, you said it as a niche market. I think now satellite is really becoming the core element of the whole telecom or communications tech ecosystem. And I think we are really part of that ecosystem. You look at all the innovation, all the sort of services, solutions that satellite are bringing to not only to connect the unconnected or digital and rural divide, but also in urban areas these days with new services. We are seeing, of course, as GSOA, we are the association that represents the whole industry, from operators to vendors, manufacturers, launchers. But what we are seeing increasingly is, of course, first a new multitude of services. You have also not only GEOs, we have MEOs, we have LEOs, and we also have increasingly multi-orbit operators. We are really operating in all these orbits. And this is really unlocking scale. It's really helping to lower cost. And also, it's accelerating innovation across our industry. So what we are seeing is really a multitude of new services. We are seeing high-capacity satellites, but we're also seeing seamless integration with terrestrial. And I'll come to that later, because I think that's something that deserves its own question.
Absolutely, because again, we spoke about tower sharing, but I think we're now beyond tower sharing. But let us talk about that in next time. So Gonzalez, what are your thoughts?
So two things. First, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the CTU for hosting us today. You talk about the unconnected, and you mentioned the year 2020. Isabel mentioned the 2.6 billion people. But if you go back to 2020, the number was 3 billion. So the gap between 2020 and 2024, when those 400 million were actually brought to the digital age, you still have that 2.6 billion that is still the challenge, but also the opportunity of doing something different. And this is where you have to look at it holistically from the perspective of not a single technology, not a single country, not a single organization is able to bridge that gap, because that gap is actually quite substantial. 2 weeks ago, the ITU released a paper looking at the different parts of that gap, and they broke it into 4 elements. The infrastructure gap is the substantial piece of that equation, but then you have the affordability gap, which is substantial for many communities and individuals. In those communities, you have the digital knowledge gap, which sometimes people gloss over without understanding that a device without the knowledge of how to use it becomes a nice paperweight. And then you have the regulatory policy gap that I know that it is the purview of many people in this room. That number was quite staggering. If you look at the report, it actually says it's between 2.4 and 2.8 trillion, not billion, trillion dollars, if you wanted to close that gap by the year 2030, in the next 5 years. So how do you really grasp the reality of the 2.8 or 2.4 trillion dollars, of which 1.4 to 1.8 is infrastructure challenges? I think you have to look at that interdependence between networks, that overlay, that complementary piece that Isabel mentioned. And this is where technologies like Kuiper come along as well. I look at some of the themes that were presented this morning and this afternoon, and we talked about the challenges, but we look at the opportunities as well. And when you look at how networks are changing, satellite is not really the traditional concept that people had 10, 15 years ago of a technology that had lived its use, or it was mostly a last resort technology. We looked at it from Amazon's perspective as the ability not only for the coverage piece, but really to make a difference to the unconnected, but not just the unconnected, it's also the underconnected.
Absolutely.
Because the biggest piece is that some of the technologies that people still have at their disposal are not adequate enough to take them to the digital age. And they're very limited in their options, whether because of the lack of competition, the lack of investment, the cost of investment in those alternatives for those populations. So that 2.6 billion can substantially increase if you look at the underserved as well. And so we are looking at software-defined networks, very powerful opportunities from space, with a tremendous investment in ground infrastructure as well, that will really unlock the potential of digital opportunities in many places around the world, including the Caribbean. And I think the interesting piece is that all that investment, of course, is happening right under our eyes for many people who may not have yet understood what's taking place, because space has become, for lack of a better word, a place where the networks are being lifted towards. And that is a natural progression of the idea that you have to look at the way of looking at your investments in a way that you scale them on a global basis. And so we looked at it particularly from Amazon's perspective of how could we invest our knowledge in technology, our focus on customers, our focus on customers' problems, which in many cases was about connectivity, to really have an impact worldwide. And that's why we looked at space as that alternative that gave us all those opportunities.
Excellent. So, Brian.
Yes.
And you know, I'm going to say this, I thank Brian so much. I called them last minute and he volunteered to come up and sit with me because you have a vast knowledge. So what are your thoughts, surrounding this question as it relates to space solutions?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you, Maria, for asking me to join at the last minute. But I should preface one thing before I make any remarks, that all of my comments are my own personal comments and are not on behalf of Viasat or any other clients that I may be engaged with before a number of the regulators in the room. So, but one of the things that I think is quite clear when you look at the history of satellite development, there are a lot of technological advancements that are taking place. And you mentioned 2019. I remember when I came to the symposium that the SMA hosted, and I think at the time Minister Fable Williams was promoting an initiative to connect hard-to-reach areas of Jamaica, a lot of the schools. But I think we had 2 days of very, very rich conversation where a lot of the stakeholders talked about their experiences, some of the challenges, some of the obstacles, as well as some of their future plans. And for me at the time as a regulator, it was very, very eye-opening, very insightful. And I'm glad that the FCC was able to engage with the SMA at that time. Some of the things that stuck out to me at the particular time, there was a lot of discussion about telemedicine and how satellite communications, satellite services can be used to promote telemedicine, as well as general connectivity for hard-to-reach areas. I remember when I went back and gave a report to the FCC, one of the things that I remember was wanting to continue to engage, but also looking at, not only from the FCC standpoint, but from around the region, that in order to really promote the future of satellite services, you need to have a regulatory environment that encourages it. And I was able to talk to some of my regulatory colleagues today, and I have to commend a lot of them for taking that step in looking specifically at the adoption of regulatory frameworks to promote satellite services. Turks and Caicos, I know, is here. I see representatives from ECTEL, including Kitts and Nevis. And so all of these, and many others, ARCA in the Bahamas. And so I know that a number of companies are engaged in trying to advance positions in order to promote that. And it's a balancing act. I mean, if I put my former regulator hat on, you look at what's in the best interest of consumers. But you also have to look at what policies should be adopted to ensure innovation and to encourage investment. So I'm excited as an individual consumer myself. I think that the future of satellite services is extremely exciting, and there's more to follow.
Yeah. One of the things they say here is that agile regulations emphasize the ongoing learning, regulatory innovation through strong partnerships between industry and government, which is fundamental. I think looking at all of that, I believe we have a number of stakeholder engagements, but again, it's always the issue of how much spectrum and looking things in isolation rather than collectively. And we're hoping, coming out of this symposium over the next couple of days, we're going to ask ourselves that question: how can we collaborate more for a better future for all in this region and beyond? So my next question is about collaboration and partnerships and driving that new business design. So, for example, let's look at T-Mobile and Vonage Phone, I think, Vonage Phone. They both did something with satellite. Tell me your thoughts on that. It was a big announcement where there, for example, if you have a T-Mobile service and you're walking, you're hiking, there's an ad, you can pay extra, and if the terrestrial network is not there instantly, bam, satellite comes in and you're connected to your family. Let's talk a little bit about that model. Could it work here? Do we have the resources?
So I'd rather talk to the, you talk about partnerships, different models, and there is a multitude of models that we are seeing. So, if you look, I'm going to focus more on, of course, the terrestrial, non-terrestrial, the integration that we were talking before. There has always been partnerships between the mobile industry and the satellite industry where we were using, backhaul, providing backhaul services. But I think what has been happening, at least in the last year or 2 years, is that we are seeing very different models of partnerships that are being emerging, from the models. So first of all, somebody this morning mentioned, I think, Release 17 and 3GPP, and I don't want to go into details of standards, but there was a moment that was really a game changer in standards. Is when satellite became fully integrated into 5G, and now we are working on satellite. Now we are working on Release 18, 19, and now we are going to be fully integrated into 6G really from the onset. So that, of course, is really a game changer for how the partnership between terrestrial and non-terrestrial is working. In fact, we signed a cooperation agreement last year with the GSMA, and I think that was, again, a big step in terms of how we are viewing these partnerships. Now, there are different models. I mean, D2D is one as well, where we are seeing increasingly the D2D models, whether it's through a mobile, spectrum or MSS. You were discussing about T-Mobile. I think one of the partnerships that we saw, or at least one of the move that we saw that was a big move 3-4 years ago, was definitely our Bharti, Airtel in India, by buying OneWeb. And investing in OneWeb, and I think that was a big sign of how things were changing in terms of the integration, that the big telco guy in the biggest market after China was willing to invest, in satellite. And then I think that was a role, for others. Now we are seeing different models. I think last week, or at least when we were in Paris at Viasat and Space 42 are launching their own model. We are seeing Link, we are seeing AAST, all making deals with mobile operators. And I think the partnerships will be very, very different models. Maybe Amazon will come and have partnerships with MNOs. I don't know, but I think we are seeing something that is was not happening before. We are also seeing a movement that, where you had satellite and mobile working in isolation. We are now thinking together. And I think you said something that, Gonzalo, that those 2.6 billion people, we are not going to connect them on our own as single industries, because it hasn't worked until now, so there is a reason why it didn't work. And now we really, the mindset has changed, and we are going to be working together on finding whatever is the best deal. And I think the main thing here again, when you look at the business model, we'll need to be clever on both sides. When we sit at the table, terrestrial, non-terrestrial, it's not that one is going to get and win it all. And I always give the example of the mistake that the MNOs did probably 15 years ago with the OTTs. I was in the mobile industry at the time. We looked at Silicon Valley as, the guys in flip-flops and shorts that were never going to hurt us, big incumbents, particularly in Europe. And they came and they completely changed the game. There is no roaming anymore. Everybody's WhatsApping. Nobody's paying, to make a phone call internationally. So I think now for terrestrial and non-terrestrial mobile satellite operators is the time to sit down together and find out the models, which may be very different and many for different operators. But the main thing is that there is a level playing field for all, that there is not one that is going to, run for free on the pipe of the other, and that there will be a share of revenue that is going to be fair. So in terms of models, I think that's how we see it overall.
Gonzalez?
So I go back to what I said before as well, that you're seeing more intertwining of networks. So whether it's on complementary systems, as you talked about on the terrestrial piece, which is not something that we have in our infrastructure or our network today, it doesn't negate the fact that those networks, the terrestrial networks, are working with satellite providers like us for their own purposes as well, whether it's last mile connectivity, and that means how they can lower the cost of extending their own network to the point where they can bring more people through existing networks, but use satellite as that complement to help them with that challenge, whether it's geographic or cost challenge, that impedes that network from going the extra mile. But then, of course, there are the partnerships where you look at distribution mechanisms where it becomes a tool for the network operator, if there's a commercial agreement, to become a channel to put that network and that tool to the use of the consumers that did not have the ability to exercise the power of that network, in this case, the space network. We have worked and entered into many such deals with terrestrial operators. Some of them actually are more what you could consider to be a public-private partnership, whether it's a government that already has a network and broadband system that needs to grow to the next capability because the existing infrastructure is not supporting those capabilities and those customers to the level they would want to have for their customer base. We have done one such agreement, for example, in Australia in the last several months, or because they're looking and innovating how they look to space to solve their connectivity due to large coverage, geographically meaning coverage areas that are extremely expensive from other technologies. There's such a synergy that is growing between networks and space that it wasn't happening 10, 15 years ago, and it will keep on growing. It will keep on growing because the networks are getting smarter on Earth as well, and therefore there's more symbiotic relationship with the customer base. At the end of the day, if we all look at ourselves as customers, most of us would not really focus on the technology, we would focus on the result. Do we get affordable options? Do we get competitive options? Do we get quality options? That's where we're putting a lot of our effort. For us, it's been quite a journey to focus on affordability for the customer's benefit. You have to really drive the idea that you can do better than what you set your goals to be. And as an example, when we designed one of our antennas, we get to a certain point, our management will say, that's great, can you do it cheaper? And the idea was that you could actually really benefit customers if you force yourself to think differently. And we are really doing that all the way from the way we design our satellite systems, to the way we operate the satellite systems, to the way we deploy our ground infrastructure, and the way we build and sell our terminals and systems and services, because we believe that that's going to drive more innovation. And innovation is where you will see the new opportunities. One area that is extremely important in the Caribbean, for example, is mobility. And I don't mean just mobility for the handset, but mobility for vessels, mobility for airplanes, other type of platforms. And that's where you've seen a lot of growth as well in the last couple of years. And that's where, since you mentioned regulatory and spectrum issues, there's still work to be done with respect to how to implement those regulatory tools and regulatory decisions that would benefit those type of applications, whether it's adoption of the WRC-23 cycle decisions on Earth stations in motion, or whether it's allowing more spectrum use with respect to certain bands that also WRC-23 made available for Region 2, of which the Caribbean is part of. So I would encourage as well that governments look at what's on their basket of possibilities to enable better options, both for the technology, but for the consumers that ride on those technologies.
Yeah, so it's more like a future-proofing, putting policies in place not to limit the whole innovation and adaptability, because we have to adapt. The time is now not to just look at redundancy, because as you mentioned, the model currently, when they talk about the fibers in the sea, it's redundant. Satellite is redundant to when a ship pulls a fiber and you connect to a satellite. But we're past that. So Brian, at the FCC, I mean, they're the big guns in this region, and we've seen a lot of change taking place over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years in this field. What is, from a regulatory standpoint, what are the lessons learned, in terms of how we're working with these new players, the LEOs, the MEOs, and of course, the adaptation of the GEOs? GEOs has always been there, but how do we play nicely?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is, well, I'm not going to talk for the FCC.
Yes.
So, but I will say that there's certainly been a paradigm shift in the way the industry is working today. Certainly many, many years ago, there were huge fights between terrestrial players and satellite operators. And so now you're seeing a lot more collaboration, a lot more discussion. And I think it's inevitable that we will reach a stage where direct-to-device services will be commonplace. I should mention that it's actually operational today in certain bands. The mobile satellite service band provides direct-to-device services primarily to support the maritime industry. And so I think one of the issues which you raised as well was the issue of spectrum usage. I mean, we've seen within the CTU Spectrum Management Task Force discussions regarding this and some of the concerns of existing terrestrial operators on how will the spectrum be utilized. And there are really two schools of thought with regard to what type of spectrum should be used. There are some stakeholders advocate for utilizing existing mobile satellite services spectrum, MSS spectrum. Other stakeholders are advocating for using terrestrial services, terrestrial spectrum. So how things play out, we'll see. It's being actively studied within CTEL and the ITU. But I would encourage Caribbean regulators, Caribbean ministries to look at this very closely and to get involved, particularly at the CTEL level. There are a number of studies that are going on right now, and certainly I think it's in everyone's benefit to see how this will play out in the future. But I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, because right now we're really at convergence moment in time. And nobody has mentioned the whole ATSC 3.0 standard as well, which is an IP-based standard for broadcasting, which I believe Trinidad has recently adopted. And Jamaica has been doing this from, I believe, 2020, when we did some form of testing, and we continue to move forward, and we're going to turn off very soon. But all of this, what if we can use the shared infrastructure? Because what is happening now with the broadcasters is that they're still in analog. So they have to consider digital to share the space. So again, collaboration is critical. Policy is critical. How do we move towards agile performances in terms of shared spectrum, for example, which we don't do right now?
And to Brian's point, just to add, since you mentioned CTEL, there's a lot of good data that countries can avail themselves to that is being developed at CTEL, particularly in the last several months of the last year. In fact, last month, CTEL on the PCC1 side put out a technical handbook for LEO systems. And there's a lot of very good information on best practices and things that worked for many administrations, which can actually inform administrations that are seeking to have their own understanding on how to approach issues that may not be known to them or they may be novel to them. So there is a good reference point there that you could make use of. In fact, also this week, CTEL PCC2, which is the radio communications side, is having a meeting in Brazil. One of the items that is also being pushed through the agenda is a study for countries to provide where they are with implementing some of those WRC decisions that I mentioned, which also gives you more clarity to understand how that spectrum eventually is to be made available, how it can be harmonized in an accelerated manner when you actually visualize the value that it gives to the communities that don't have that opportunity. So I would encourage governments to really look into those existing mechanisms, those existing documents and the information, because it could help you really accelerate your own understanding of what you would need to do internally in your own administration.
Right. So in this regard now, we look at policy frameworks and how do we try to frame the policy to support innovation, to impact GDP, to impact economic growth and development, and to affect the average citizen across the region. And when I'm speaking about Jamaica, we're speaking about the Caribbean citizen. How can we impact them? What role collectively will impact them? What are your thoughts on this?
So I come back from there was the Global Symposium of Regulators 2 weeks ago in Saudi, and increasingly this year, one thing that we've heard is that policymakers and regulators should evolve from being rule makers to ecosystem builders. And maybe it's only semantics, but it's not. You know, by rule making, there's something that is, as you were saying, nearly prescriptive, whilst we need to think much broader. And I like this theme of like building ecosystems. And I think when we think of policy making evolving, that's how we need to look at this. And there are maybe three sort of factors, if you want, that have to be taken into account here. One is the technological understanding. The world is becoming, the technological work, whether it's satellite, mobile, is becoming increasingly complex. The integration of systems is adding complexity to that. So we really need to ensure that industry, regulators, policymakers sit at the table together, that the technology is well understood so that the regulation is, adapted to that. The second thing is agility, and you mentioned it. Technology is evolving so rapidly that we cannot have prescriptive rules. We need to have rules that are able to adapt to the rapid evolution of that technology. And finally, I think it's really the collaboration as well. We really need to think in collaborative terms, not only ourselves within satellite industry, with the mobile terrestrial industry, with the verticals. And that is also valid for policymakers. So often the Ministry of Agriculture doesn't speak to the Ministry of ICT or Finance. But how can you have, e-payments? How can you have e-agriculture? How can you have e-health if the ministries, if the policymakers, the regulators are not speaking to each other? So that, I think, are ways in which we really need to think. But then there are must-haves that have always been there, which for us is also, and that's a very difficult thing when you speak to regulators. We need that agility, but we also need some certainty because you need the certainty on long-term spectrum in order to make your investment. And that's where the balance to be struck by regulators is probably the most difficult.
Absolutely. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier when you look at that ITU data that policy and regulation was the smallest bucket of the challenge on the digital roadmap, if you wish, to bring equitable access to broadband around the world. But being the smallest doesn't mean it's less important. It's still very critical. So a lot of what Isabel mentioned is actually what we also support. But I will say that you have to look at technology not in just a silo. You also have to address, if you put yourself in the situation which you mentioned, is how do you bring solutions to customers? Well, how are you going to power those solutions? Where is the plan for the national electric grid or other sources of power that is going to help? Because we all depend on such power. And while we can look at solutions as well that try to bridge that gap, whether it's solar energy or others, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be there. And so you have to look at it from that perspective. We also depend, as we mentioned before, on other technologies. So if we have to purchase fiber, or if we have to use fiber to distribute content on Earth, how are the prices of those technologies really also impacting the overall affordability of the service? If that is a funnel that blocks that progress, is that serving the ultimate goal of serving the unserved or underserved customer? So that element that Isabel was mentioning, where you see those breaks between what the discussions could happen at the telecom regulator level or at the finance level, being at times critical. It could impact things as importing equipment or making equipment accessible to users, which also goes back to digitalization and the digital efforts to have that availability for customers to access the technology, because otherwise the network could be there, but the ability to use the network may be non-existent. I think we look at regulation not just in a bucket of telecom, but in the bucket of what is the ultimate goal for the customer and what else beyond the telecom should we be thinking is critical to open the floodgates for that benefit to the user.
And the price point.
And the price point. And we're trying on our end, of course, to really impact price point, because that's one of our customer pillars, our core pillars, not only as Amazon, but as Kuiper. But everybody is really recognizing the fact that affordability is a huge challenge.
It is. Affordability.
And just maybe one thing I want to add as well is that when when regulators, policymakers develop their national digital plans, which, in many countries they're still doing, what we encounter most of the time, they only look at terrestrial, they only look at fiber, they only look at mobile. And that's where the mentality really has to change. You have to take into account all technologies, all solutions, and see which one is best suited to the local needs, to the needs of the customers, of the enterprises, of the governments. And I think that is critical that we look at this. Equally, when universal services funds are being used, making sure that those are distributed to any technology and not just one service or one rule. So all of this as well can change the way we make policy making.
Excellent. I'm getting a signal to wrap up, but Brian, I'd love to hear from you before we do our closing remarks. And could you bring that in? This is what I wanted persons to look at. Let's come in a little bit closer. Let's see the world. So these are the satellites. Go out, go out, go out, go out. Keep on going. Yes, now that's it. This is what is. The cheese has moved, and it's no longer a terrestrial day. These are the satellites around the world. So when you look up and you think you're seeing stars, think again, my friend. Now, Brian, any thoughts?
It's a lot of cheese.
Well, I think looking at the diagram, it certainly demonstrates the number of satellites.
Oh, there's a question. Okay.
That are operational today and in service. And you can look at this in one of several ways. One is that shows innovation, and it shows that the ability to deploy multiple satellites around the world could create significant benefits. You can also look at it from the standpoint of a danger. And there's a lot of discussion globally around the issue of space sustainability. We probably don't have enough time to get into all the details of that, but I think that it is an issue that a lot of regulators, a lot of governments, particularly in the region, are grappling with today.
Yeah.
Given various collisions, given rocket launches that have...
So when I look at this, I see opportunity. I see development. I see a world where people are educated, people are producing because they have access to telecommunications. The farmer in the hills now can connect with the person at the hotel. I'm seeing there is an opportunity for the whole matter of predatory and larceny on farmers getting attention. I see, the removal of the need for fossil fuel at the base stations, when you can have base stations in the sky in certain areas. I see meeting with communities to beg them to put a service in, and then they're going to burn it down because, again, they are the fear factor of radiation, because we have that in the Caribbean, where people actually will take down a station or cut fiber. So there is an opportunity for all of us to benefit from this. But there is a question. Please, I hope the person has not forgotten the question. And Melissa, I knew it was you. Yes, my love. Turn on the mic for her, please.
It's not on?
Go ahead.
It's on now? Okay, fabulous, right. So thank you so very much, Maria and the panelists. Wonderful discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to wake up. I really, really do. This is after lunch, but this is really a revolutionary conversation for this region, because what it means for us is that one day, the folks who are in this room, we may not have an opportunity to be in this room any longer. And I'll tell you why, and then I can ask my question quickly. So I love, Isabel, what Jisowa is saying about that collaboration and that everybody has to have a seat at the table. There are different business models for satellite service, as we know. One of those models, which I know Trinidad wants to pursue, and I will not speak for them, but it's D2D, which is direct-to-device. So what will happen for those of us who are, just catching up with it, is that my phone that I can get service from Flow or some other provider, but Flow, one day your service could be from a satellite provider whose name you don't even know today. And that's who your service is from. It means that the job that I have, Irving has, some other people have, may not exist any longer, but that job is not being replaced in our region by something else or another position. So I love the innovation. And when we respond to the consultations that have been going on through the region, we remind our regulators that innovation should not be jobless. There should be investments in the countries in the Caribbean. I know our regulators are struggling with that because it's real, but it's not easy because of how the technology is. So we remind, this morning I spoke about the bold investment that Cable and Wireless made decades ago. We need satellite providers to also make bold investments in the region. The innovation is great. It's fabulous, but we need bold investment in the region, or we're going to find that we get the services, but our economies are not growing. So that's something to contemplate. But I do say, Jisowa, I love the collaboration that you speak about. I love that everyone should have something from at the table. Dios, I really appreciate the fact that satellite providers want to bridge that digital divide. We also want to know that there's a partnership and a collaboration in countries. So my question really is, how do you see this partnership working? Do you see this partnership being with the governments, being with the terrestrial providers, or being with other folks? So that's my question. How will these economies grow in terms of your investment, other than the service that you will provide? Hopefully I was clear. Thank you.
And let me help phrase the question, because again, government is the greatest enabler in a country, because we're for the people and by the people at all times. So what is ever in the best interest of the people, we serve. Now, in Jamaica and a number of other Region 2 areas, they have done sandboxing. So we do sandboxing where you test a concept and you can collaborate. Right now, I know UTech is actually working with a number of regulators, both locally and regionally, to collaborate, to see how it would look and how we would approach it. And again, it's not, I don't believe in a big bang. I mean, that happened once, so they say. But the fact is, it's now a new time, and persons need to be connected. And I give you an illustration, Melissa. The average millennial, when they walk around, I got the fright of my life. I went to see my daughter at college, and I was taking out money to pay, and she said, no. And she just tapped her phone. And she tap, want food, DoorDash. We're coming to a time when connectivity is just a necessity of life. It's like the water. You know, every time I go into the bath, I say, thank you, God, for portable water. Although I love the Middle Ages and the beauty of splendor, thank God for portable water. But thank God for portability in terms of having connectivity. It is becoming such a lifeblood for many persons. And it is important for us to work. We understand the fact, and I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I don't see jobless. I see a rising in a different type of job. So many days long ago, you had the milkman who walked around and with a horse and carriage and carried milk around. And he was replaced with a supermarket where you can go and buy milk. But everything evolves. And as we go through technology, it is a great enabler. Because that person that used to walk around with the milk is now doing something on a more productive scale to serve the country. But again, I am just the moderator. Let me hear from the panelists. What are your thoughts on that?
First, I am not the investor, these people are, so I can't reply on to that. But I think we should never forget that whether we are industry or governments, policymakers, our ultimate aim should be the customer, should be the user. And as a user, I shouldn't care whether my service is via satellite, whether it's via mobile, whether it's another technology. As long as it's seamless, as long as it's good quality and it's affordable, that's what we should all aim to offer, independently of whether we are industry, etc. Jobless, are we going to be all jobless in the region? No, I just think like we've seen it with so many evolutions of technologies, different technologies. It's a shift in jobs. It's not that there are less jobs. Like you see less jobs in one sector, you see others developing in other sectors. So I think it's an ongoing shift that we are going on to see. And as long as we all work together, and we evolve, you evolve. I went to work from the mobile industry into the satellite industry, and I see so many colleagues of mine doing that shift. There is a shift, and people are going to do this shift. And maybe in 10 years' time, it will be the other way around again. I don't know. But we need to evolve with innovation and hope for the best, and never forget that we do it for the users in the countries. For the people, yeah.
So if the question was about partnerships and how to work with industry players, we are very much interested in flexibility in our business models. There are many cases where we go direct to consumer because it It is permissible. It's something that allows us to serve the customer better. It allows the customer to get the best possible service. In other cases, we may choose not to do so. We may choose to work with a local partner because that partner has a better relationship with his or her customers, and we can enable that partner to keep on growing, to offer those customers the solutions that we may not be able to support. But I wouldn't be prescriptive, as Isabel mentioned earlier, because they all take different inputs and different drivers to get to the end result. What we are after, and most of the industry is after, is to really shape the pie into a different pie. It's not about taking from one side and put it on the other side. It's about bringing more people so that we can actually all look at it from a new perspective of what does it mean to serve all those people who are not able or who were not able to be included. That's where the opportunities will come, when you become much more inclusive, much more creative, and you really use technology to advance on those policy goals, of course, taking into account how to shape the regulatory environment that makes that technology be more productive for the benefit of everybody, including consumers.
The only thing I would add, Alicia, is that from a partnership standpoint, it's already happening. Discussions are going on right now. When we're talking specifically about D2D, I know a number of companies are having discussions at the highest levels to figure out how this would work in practice. There are a lot of technical, operational, financial, and regulatory issues that have to be worked out. I certainly don't know what each company is thinking in terms of a timetable, but I think those discussions are ongoing. The last thing I'd say, just in terms of looking at developing a policy framework to try to promote services, I would also try to encourage, now I'm putting on my Caribbean Guyanese hat right now, but also try to encourage training and trying to develop the next generation in terms of technology know-how. I know at the FCC we used to have a lot of workshops, and I know that it's done throughout the region, but I would encourage every administration to think about how they can leverage the expertise of some of these companies to train the next generation, whether it's holding online workshops or bringing companies in to showcase the next technologies. That's something I would highly recommend.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
You're most welcome. So I think we've had a very spirited conversation. Did you feel it? Oh, you're all sleeping. Did you feel it? Thank you for that. And leaders in the room, it's imperative that we take charge of our future, because what I showed you are satellites that are in our orbit that are handing off data, and do we know how they're handing off that data? So again, we have a lot of work ahead of us, team, and we have to drop our sleep because the time is now for us to take action. Thank you once again. Thank you, CTU. It's been an awesome honor.
I suffer from tinnitus, so I have this concert.
Thank you very much to the panel. We do have some gifts for the panelists.
Face the camera, Nigel, you're not facing the camera. You're not. I need to turn around the camera. They're taking pictures and turn around it. Yes. I know. I need to turn it around to the thank you shows. Turn it around to the thank you shows.
Oh no, yes, exactly.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Well, it seems that our satellite communications panel generated some interest and questions and so on. Very good. At the end, Mr. Brian Carter mentioned developing the next generation and so on. Oh, by the way, if you're looking at your agendas online, you will see a coffee break scheduled for now, but we will forego the actual break. The coffee is available if anyone is not yet full from lunch that might need to grab a coffee or something of the sort. It's available right there, and we'll encourage you just to go and get it. Just in terms of developing the next generation, one of the initiatives of the Secretary General of the CTU is to start a Caribbean ICT Youth Network. And in the next 2 sessions, we will have 2 members of that youth network performing moderation duties. So we will move now into the sponsors' lightning presentations. This is where we challenge persons to make their point in less than 10 minutes. And in that way, get your minds thinking. So to run this session, I will invite Ms. Gabrielle Johnson, who is actually the Vice Chair of our Caribbean ICT Youth Network, or CIYN, to the podium to guide us through this session. Gabrielle is actually with the Ministry of Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence in Trinidad and Tobago. So, Gabrielle?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Nigel, for that introduction. So this session features our sponsors who are leading organizations at the forefront of shaping the Caribbean's digital future. It provides our key partners with a platform to share perspectives on the innovative solutions and policies driving digital transformation in the region. The presentations will be concise yet powerful, showcasing major initiatives and highlighting possible opportunities for collaboration among governments, private sector, and civil society. Our presenters bring a wealth of expertise across technology platforms, policy, and business innovation. So we have Ms. Nida Brown, Senior Director for Regulatory and Government Affairs, Liberty Caribbean. We have Ms. Deborah Galindo, who's joining us remotely, Manager for WhatsApp Policy for Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, and Public Policy for Central America and the Caribbean at Meta. We have Mr. Giovanni King, Chief Executive Officer of Blue Nap Americas, and we have Mr. Adriel Irons, who's also joining us remotely, Senior Product Manager at Google Cloud. And finally, we'll see a short video presentation from USF and e-learning. So without further delay, let's begin with our first presenter, Ms. Nida Brown.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Ministers, colleagues, distinguished partners, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you briefly today about Liberty Caribbean, where we are and where we like to go in partnership with you all. I know time is short, so I won't be before you long. My AI friends tell me that if I speak at a natural pace, this will take 6.7 minutes. So let's see, let's go. The Caribbean today is at a decisive moment in its digital journey. Over the past decade, our region has made commendable strides. Broadband has become more widespread, mobile networks have reached every corner of our islands, and governments have begun to digitize services that were once entirely paper-based. We are seeing the emergence of e-governance, platforms, digital payment systems, and regional dialogues on cybersecurity. The very fact that digital transformation now sits at the heart of regional agendas shows just how far we have come. But this progress, while real, is not nearly complete. We can see clearly that the digital landscape is still marked by unevenness. Our city centers enjoy fast broadband, while more remote communities remain underserved. Some islands are testing 5G, while others still struggle with 4G affordability. Large businesses are digitizing quickly, while many micro and small enterprises, the very backbone of our economies, lack the skills or resources to take the leap. The pandemic was a wake-up call. Overnight, in many places, digital connectivity became the lifeline for education, healthcare, commerce, and government. We discovered our potential and our fragility. We proved that digital tools can keep our societies functioning, but we also saw the cost the digital divide that left many behind. So you've heard this before, and I'm going to say it again. We stand at an inflection point in this region. The choices we make now in policy, in investment, in partnership, will determine whether the Caribbean steps boldly into the digital future or risks being left behind as the rest of the world accelerates into the next industrial revolution. And the opportunity before us is tremendous. And I really do know that I'm preaching to the choir here, but digital technologies allow our small, dispersed nations to overcome geography, to scale our markets, and to create new industries that were once out of reach. A teacher in rural Dominica can access global learning platforms. A fintech startup in Trinidad can serve customers across the hemisphere. A climate scientist in the Bahamas can use real-time data to strengthen disaster preparedness. But let me ask, what would it mean if we created a future where sustainability meets Caribbean-born digital innovation? We unlock a future where our islands are not just surviving, but thriving, leading the world as laboratories of resilience and champions of climate-smart progress. Do we dream even bolder and imagine a Caribbean where no community, no matter how remote, is ever offline, even after a hurricane? And where our islands are global hubs for future innovation. We're already beginning to see what's possible. Last year, Hurricane Beryl, Category 5 and the strongest hurricane on record to develop within the main development region of the Atlantic before July, started its tour of destruction across the region, and in a matter of hours, it devastated Grenada's outer islands of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Years of infrastructure, homes, livelihoods, and even precious lives gone. Understanding the need for and importance of connectivity and supporting recovery efforts, Liberty Caribbean rapidly mobilized next-gen wireless technologies and state-of-the-art fiber gigabit networks to drive economic recovery fit for the digital future. Grenadian small businesses now own the tools to reach new markets, proving that digital infrastructure directly fuels economic opportunity in the wake of natural disasters. There's also the progress we're seeing in food security while maintaining safeguarding the environment. Our partnership with One Eleuthera Foundation in the Bahamas allows us, as their technology partner, to make agriculture more productive, resource efficient, climate smart, and inclusive. The digital tools they've been able to develop support data-driven decisions that include water conservation through smart irrigation, deliver higher yields with low impact, all while empowering smallholder farmers. For many of our countries, our public health systems, while intended to deliver much needed medical help to our citizens, now require a greater level of digital reform. A health system without digital tools is like navigating a hospital by candlelight, searching for a book through a library with no catalog. Doctors waste time, patients repeat their stories, tests are duplicated, and precious urgent care is delayed, literally a matter of life and death. Recognizing the importance of bringing public health care online quickly, Liberty Caribbean is pleased to partner with the Queen Elizabeth Hospital of Barbados to deliver digitized healthcare services through an electronic health records management solution. This opportunity was afforded to us by the great collaboration we demonstrated right here in Jamaica with the Ministry of Health and their ambition to develop telehealth services for the country. These are just a few real-life examples of the very basic, but the possibilities to overcome these challenges and leap ahead of the rest of the world are endless for our region. And we together have the capacity to do it. To seize this moment, 3 things are essential. First, resilient infrastructure. robust fiber and mobile networks backed by both subsea and satellite redundancy and renewable energy to withstand both hurricanes and surging demand. Second, harmonized regulation, frameworks that attract investment, protect consumers, and allow our small states to act with the weight of one digital, unified, not fragmented nation. And third, inclusive access, affordable services, digital literacy, and targeted programs for youth and our small businesses so that digital opportunities is not a privilege, but a right. This, in turn, allows our citizenry to become active creators and innovators of locally grounded content of the digital future instead of passive consumers. Again, let us imagine what opportunities could open up if every young person had the skills to code, create, and compete globally right here from home. And how much stronger would our Caribbean economies be if our digital infrastructure was recognized globally as among the most reliable and secure? We are already taking steps in this direction. Across the region, Liberty Caribbean has launched digital literacy programs in partnership with schools, ensuring students don't just consume technology, but learn to create with it. Here in Jamaica, we're piloting smart community Wi-Fi solutions, giving thousands of citizens their first reliable internet connection, and demonstrating how private-public partnerships can bridge the digital divide. Now, this is not a task for governments. We've heard this already today, for governments alone or operators alone. It demands a new era of partnership, and that's what we're looking for. Public and private, regional and international, where we go further, faster, creatively into the future. Together, again, developing locally grown solutions fit for the world stage. This moment is a crossroads for the Caribbean's digital future. We can either move forward with boldness, collaboration, creativity, and investment, or allow inertia and fragmentation to hold us back. I believe, and I know as you do as well, that the Caribbean will choose progress, and in doing so, will create not just a connected region, but a digitally empowered people ready to compete and thrive in the global economy. Thank you so much for your time, and I really look forward to your partnerships.
Thank you so much, Nida, for that concise and informative presentation. So next, I would like to call upon Ms. Deborah Galindo, who is joining us remotely, to take the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm just gonna share my presentation. Can you please confirm when you're able to see it, please? Perfect. I think I can see it on the screen. But if you're not able to see it, there's no issue. I can send you some materials afterwards. So I'm Deborah Galindo, and I'm the Public Policy Manager at Meta for Central America and the Caribbean. And it's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm very sorry that I'm not able to be enjoying Jamaica with you. However, I do hope that we get an opportunity to meet in person in the near future. My presentation today is on Llama, that for those of you who may not be familiar is our large language model. And we're going to talk a little bit about why Llama and why we recommend open source as a way for governments to promote innovation in their countries, including some government examples. And this is, and I take upon the conversation of my previous, of the colleague that previously presented, the goal is to help you drive innovation into your countries and into your governments, all taking into consideration the benefit of the society. So there's no doubt that AI is right now a very transformative technology for society, and it can be transformative for governments as well. In many cases, it already is because there are several governments and institutions that are already using and leveraging AI to provide support to their citizens. We do believe that open source AI is a path forward and that the benefits of AI can be spread evenly and safely across society rather than concentrated in the hands of a few. This is why at Meta we are advocating for an open source model. And we also believe that our large language model, Llama, is best placed to help governments accelerate innovation and opportunity, reducing cost as well, and improving safety, security, and accountability. Our innovation and opportunity, what we are seeing is a future where open models like Llama are continually improved and built upon by everyone. That will mean reducing barriers to entry, sharing innovation and success widely, and drastically reducing the resources and money needing to build things from scratch. And on safety, security, and accountability, we see a future where open models, as a result of their ability to be downloaded on local hardware, result in less data having to be shared with external parties and more control over what you're building and how you implement it. Beyond this, open models also allow researchers and authorities to look under the hood to make sure software is actually doing what it is supposed to be doing. But before we start talking about AI and the future, I also wanted to share with you where we started. So the debate about open versus closed systems is not new. We have had similar conversations about open versus closed data in the early 2000s. And what we have learned since then is very interesting. For one thing, despite the type of doomsday scenarios forecast, open data has actually become increasingly ubiquitous across both government and private sectors. More than this, it can actively foster public and private collaboration to address some of the global challenges, for instance, a global pandemic. It is open nature rather than being a limiting factor has resulted in better documentation, better public service, and the rise of shared ethical frameworks governments are using. And last but not least, the majority agree that an open approach to development improves security, contrary to the security by obscurity approach of not releasing code. But where are we right now in the conversation at this moment? How do governments stand to benefit today by choosing open source AI models like Llama as opposed to their closed source counterparts? So we think there are three major advantages to choosing an open source AI. First of all, maximum sovereignty. Secondly, cost effectiveness. And in third place, accelerated innovation and improved outcomes. And we're going to go through each one a little bit more into depth in the following slides. So starting with maximum sovereignty, what do we mean by this? This means basically greater control, more customization, and better privacy and security. We do believe that open source AI models can help you customize software, including AI models as needed, and adjust and train it with your own datasets. These can also allow government entities to exercise full control over your data by operating on private, secure government cloud infrastructure, as opposed to infrastructure that is run or managed by commercial companies. This also reduces privacy and security risks. In third place, we have the protect yourselves idea. So we do see that it is changing from third-party priorities or business needs into a more government-focused approach. And finally, increase of interoperability through open source projects, which isn't always possible with commercial software providers. Regarding the benefit number 2 that I just mentioned, it's the cost effectiveness. So we do see that open source AI models can help distill default size AI models into smaller models for cheaper operational costs. This also reduces maintenance and upgrade investments in the mid to long term and the overall cost of software, even within electoral cycles. This also helps avoid the long-term costs and avoid the vendor locks and limitations associated with a more proprietary model providers. And finally, these type of models also increase flexibility because choosing open source allows you to switch between different models as needed, and also help you hire and retain talent despite competing against higher private sector wages, because open source AI is an attractive proposition to up-and-coming developers as well. And the benefit number 3 that I just mentioned is the accelerating innovation and improving outcomes for citizens. So the opportunities of open source AI in this area include tapping into a large open source developer community that can help stress test software or improve it with community developed components. Also building on industry standards, including tools for security, and producing smarter, better public sector outcomes in areas like health, education, public safety, and more. We have several statements of organizations all around the world that are supporting this type of models and solutions. We do have some here on the screen from the OECD, the European Commission, the United Nations. But what I want to show you as well is not only talking about why and how open source models such as Llama may help you, but we want to show you how some entities and governments and organizations around the world are using it. So open source models such as Llama are already making governments around the world more efficient and in a lot of different ways. Here we have, for instance, an example that in France, a public finance agency of the government developed a tool on Llama 2 to help public servants streamline the legislative process. And it does so by facilitating amendments, classifications, and even by helping other ministries and departments understand the legal bills. This was also developed in the French Parliament, and this has provided a lot of cost saving and time savings for these institutions. Organization elsewhere in France as well is a digital agency for the French government, and they created a chatbot that's called Albert that has been helping civil servants implement public services. The backend of the AI agent uses our open source model number 3. We also have the European Commission, who launched an internal tool designed to help its employees leverage AI to streamline their work. And the tool allows for staff to select Llama 3.1 and to instruct also other models of LLMs that they may want to. We also have healthcare providers that are looking into the possibility of using LLMs like Llama to anonymize patient data and comply with privacy laws. For instance, in Barcelona, we have the Barcelona Supercomputing Unit that built Aloe, which is an accurate healthcare-specific LLM that is built on Llama 3 with advanced training and inference mechanisms. And we also have the Mayo Clinic that also has created a GPT LLM for radiation oncology. The Pratham Saab Pradigi Innovation Center also developed a WhatsApp chatbot that is built on Llama 2 to offer personalized on-demand support for childhood education. And we have several examples on different areas that may be of interest to you. But not only it is being used by government entities in the healthcare or the legislative sectors, but also we are seeing that it is more and more being used into other types of platforms. Poland Robotics, for instance, is a private company that uses Llama 2 and Segment Anything AI models to develop an open source robotics platform. And this will also enhance the education on this type of technology. And finally, we have some other examples from other private companies that are using it to help them, for instance, analyze customer complaints at a massive scale, provide recommendations to people on the cars that they wish to buy, and to help people find their way in railway stations. So if anything that you have heard today has kind of piqued your interest and you're interested in learning a little bit more and maybe trying or testing to build a solution on Llama or any other open source model, I want to share with you kind of a checklist of what you would need to do to get started with Llama. Starting first with a data hosting solution, then a software and interface solution, a project team that comprises engineers, project leads, comms, and legal, and also high-level decision makers as the ones that are sitting in the room right now. This is a second detailing on how to actually go about implementing a Llama project, and you have a QR code at the bottom of the screen if you wish to take a photo, look a little bit more into the information that I just shared. And this list, the one in the prior slide and this one, just basically map out what your journey into trying to create an AI solution for your governments would look like, and what are the steps that you will need to follow up to make this reality happen. And with that, I just want to thank you so much for listening. I know that you have been sitting in that room that for the whole day, and I hope that I wasn't talking about something that was very boring to you. Thank you so much. And for any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. The CTU folks have my information, and I'm very happy to connect with any of you.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for that, really insightful presentation, and thanks so much for joining us. I would like to move on to Mr. Giovanni King, Chief Executive Officer of Blue Nap Americas.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me take a step back based on the volume of my voice. For me, a pleasure to be here and to speak on some of the developments that are happening in the Caribbean as we speak. And I hope that our organization can put my slides up so I could do it a little bit faster and you can see. But as we are waiting, I'll still continue from here. So as mentioned, I am the CEO of Blue Nap Americas, and I'm also the chairman of Caribbean Data Center Association. And I want to talk a little bit of both of these organizations. Considering the fact that all governments in the region and even enterprises are going through the process of digital transformation, and we are collecting so much information that is valuable to all of us, as the manager of a data center in the Caribbean, we thought that it was very important to see how do we support this development, providing the infrastructure in support of projects that we have been discussing in the region for a while. Coming out of the of the CARICOM single market and economy and the CARICOM single ICT space, we considered that a coalition of data centers combined in Caribbean Data Center Association would give us the tool to facilitate these projects. One of the main objectives, so to take a step back, Caribbean Data Center Association was created in Curacao in 2024, founded by Blue Nap Americas and DataSur, a data center out of Suriname, with the objective to basically create a cluster of interconnected data centers across the region. In that way, creating an infrastructure where governments and enterprise could host, store, analyze their data within our region using facilities that already exist, using subsea cables that connect us to each other, or satellite communication in order for us to have that cluster. So, in the past 2 years, what we have done is to basically speak about this subject across the region in different forums, just like this one. And what we are seeing that slowly but surely we're gaining traction and we're gaining members. Within the region, not only does the organization exist of Blue Nap Americas and DataSur at this moment, but we can see that our membership is growing, not only in the region, but also outside of the region. Without going through the list, I can share that, for instance, an organization like KIO, which is one of the major data centers in Central America, with a data center in the Dominican Republic, has become member of the Caribbean Data Center Association, and that we are currently working to connect Blue Nap Americas with KIO with a direct connection in order to start running proof of concept to see how we support disaster recovery and all other services that are provided within the region. It is not so that only data centers can become members of these organizations, but we also encourage academia, we also encourage vendors, and we also encourage governments to look at if they own data centers to become part of it, because in this way we grow the infrastructure, we create reliability, resiliency, and we build trust within this infrastructure. Not only can I mention that we're growing, but we're actively doing things within the organization. One of our partners, which is Cloud Carib, one of the biggest managed services and cloud service providers in the region, if not the biggest, we're partnering up with them and a European organization called Gaia X, through which we are building what we're calling a federated cloud for the region. Based on the Gaia X principles that are within their core, based on European standards and European values, we're aiming to create an infrastructure through which we can facilitate data sharing within the Caribbean that is in support of trust, because we're using known standards and norms to achieve this objective. So the key initiatives, as I mentioned already, here is like advocacy on data centers. During the day, we had different conversations where people are talking about the amount of energy that data centers consume, the fact that there is limited human resources in the region that can support the further construction or the build out of this infrastructure in support of our objectives. But together, we can still make it work. We can think about ways to share these human resources. We can think about ways of sharing the infrastructure, which would make it possible not for only those islands where we currently have data centers, like the one that I will talk about a little bit, which is Blue Nap Americas, which is the only Tier 4 data center in the region up to now. There are islands that are currently in the process of building. For instance, this is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. The Gaia X project, and we're building out our association by coming part of, for instance, other associations across the region. Through this, we hope to bring more knowledge to the region and also share our knowledge with the associations that we are becoming part of. I will skip a few so that I can talk about Blue Nap Americas. So, as I said, a Tier 4 data center certified by Uptime, and also we have the ANSI TIA certification all the way from design to operations. We are a certified sustainable data center. We have a pre-GDPR certification. We have the ISO 27001 certification. I'm mentioning just to show that we have these facilities in the region, and they are, it is at the disposal of everybody. And again, through the association, we hope to build an infrastructure through which we can diversify and limit the risks that we can encounter if we have all of our data in one particular location. Some of the benefits that we see of being part of the association and some of the projects that we're running. For instance, the federated cloud solution is that we have clear procurement because we're using the Gaia X standards, known standards, proven technology. We can be compliant based on those same standards and regulations. We can create disaster recovery projects because we're now diversified across multiple islands. Once we finalize the creation of the cluster of interconnected data centers, we can facilitate to IXPs to have our regional data flows be within the region, remain within the region. And through that, we can create that level of trust that we're looking for because we're dealing with this valuable asset. When we're talking about how we see the future, again, creating that single ICT space because we're creating the cluster of interconnected data centers. We're supporting the policy development and harmonization like it's being set forth by the CTU. We're expanding partnerships not only in the region, but even within Central and South America. And we're calling for a support of ministers so that we can sit together, talk about how we can be part of their developments within their particular jurisdictions. I want to keep it short. So I said, Giovanni King, this is my contact information. I'll be here the whole week, and I'm happy to exchange information and talk to you guys to see how we can support the future digital transformation of our region. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Giovanni, for that presentation. So we'll now move on to Mr. Adriel Irons, who's also joining us remotely, Senior Product Manager at Google Cloud. Adriel, you could take the floor.
Thanks a lot. And I am sharing my screen. Hopefully you all are able to see it as it comes up. But distinguished ministers and executives, it's an honor to be with you this afternoon. I am Adriel Irons, a Senior Product Manager for GDC air-gapped operations. I'm joining you from Atlanta, Georgia today, though I really wish I could be with you in person. It's been far too long since I've been home, but I am honored to be with you this afternoon. Hopefully you are able to see my screen. Yep. Okay, there we go. I'll keep my remarks brief this afternoon, but I'm here to talk about Google Distributed Cloud, which is a product family that can meet many of the objectives of folks in this room. So what is GDC? Let's dive right in. And, I'll talk about the main driver behind GDC. And you're probably familiar with the Google Cloud or Google Cloud Platform and, the hyperscalers for, running cloud information. But not every customer can have their workloads in the public cloud. So the approach for GDC is really structured around, 4 tenets where we think a private cloud would be better suited. In a regulatory environment requiring compliance for certain workloads and a high level of security, or in a situation where survivability is paramount, and you need to ensure that applications at the edge run continuously. There's also scenarios where local data processing is necessary, and it's driven by a massive volume and the cost of moving that raw data. Finally, scenarios of latency where speed is paramount and near real-time millisecond level decisions are occurring and requires the data to be at the edge. So when facing these challenges, we've developed the GDC product family, as a solution. So what is Google Distributed Cloud? It is a hardware software product that lets you have Google's best AI anywhere. So on premise or at the edge. It also allows you to bring compute directly to your data. It allows for a modernized open cloud native technology stack based on Kubernetes. And it brings it with it a cloud-based operations model. So it is as a service, fully managed, and simplifies your operations. There we go. So let's talk a little bit about AI. But yeah, all jokes aside, our key differentiator is AI, and we have a 4-layer AI stack. So not just a set of tools, but a stack that serves as a foundation all the way up. So there's a managed cloud platform, and then there is Vertex AI, and agent space that can be built on top of that. We also recently announced Gemini on GDC, which brings the power of Google Gemini to run in a private distributed cloud environment. And so you can really accelerate your on-premise AI with GDC and deliver powerful, resilient, AI experience at scale. The premise of GDC is being rack scale, but being able to expand at the level of a hypervisor. And it's based with security at the foundation, with controls to protect your sensitive data. And it allows you to develop and build your AI solutions quickly in order to meet your strategy and reach your business outcomes faster. So what is the actual product portfolio? We have GDC air-gapped racks, and then GDC connected servers, and GDC software only. So in essence, these are 3 different flavors of the software solution that is Kubernetes based, that forms the infrastructure of a cloud platform designed to scale from rack scale to multi-zone, multi-region. With air-gapped racks, the hardware is in your own data center. And so single or multiple regions, that is within your organization's control. It's running the Google GDC software. You are able to operate it with your own operators, and all the software and know-how is provided. With GDC connected servers, you're able to have your own hardware, your own servers within your data center, but it is managed by Google. And so it's managed by Google SRE, allowing for compute for AI to be on-prem, but all the management to be as a service. And then software only allows for you to set up the Kubernetes-based control plane with your own hardware. And so this is all, cloud native technology, as I mentioned, Kubernetes native, and it's non-proprietary, and so open for you to be free with your ongoing development and as you choose to expand. And the operations model, like I mentioned, is intended to be as a service, either in cloud server or connected servers, which are run using the as a service model by Google, or in GDC racks, which allow you to bring your own operators who still provide to end users in an as a service model. And this is not theoretical. This is actually in production and in various stages of rollout or ongoing workloads with many different customers, with 43,000 stores being rolled out with McDonald's, with our CSIT friends in Singapore using it for keeping their sensitive data secure. Our BWI friends in Germany, expanding their operational capability with their GDC universe, and many other examples. So that's a quick overview of GDC, both servers and connected. My contact information is with the organizers. Feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions, but thanks for letting me be here with you today.
Thank you so much, Adriel, for that presentation, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes. So in the interest of time, we'd show the videos from USF and e-learning probably tomorrow during lunch. So with that being said, I want to thank all of our presenters for those engaging and thought-provoking interventions. The commitment and innovation from our sponsors are critical to building a more connected, resilient, and inclusive digital Caribbean. So on behalf of the CTU and all the participants, I extend my gratitude to you all for your contributions. So thank you. I now hand over to Mr. Nigel Casimir, Deputy SG.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle. We're moving right along into our last presentation. We still have a short panel thereafter. And this would be from Amazon. The presentation would be on empowering small business through e-commerce and satellite connectivity. And the presenter is Ms. Aro Orgeron, who is the Director of Public Policy in the Americas for Amazon. So, Aro, please go. Please welcome her.
Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here today, and I know that we are running late, so of course I will keep my remarks as brief as possible. I just want to thank the Caribbean Telecommunications Union and the government of Jamaica for hosting this event and for giving me the opportunity to address you during the ministerial meeting. I love the theme of this conference, Driving Change, Connecting Futures, because it's very aligned with Amazon's business philosophy. And I'm excited to talk to you today about how governments, businesses, and other stakeholders can work together to create opportunities, drive change, and connect futures for communities and entrepreneurs in the Caribbean. At Amazon, we are proud to partner with small and medium-sized businesses, developers, authors, and content creators from around the world as they grow their businesses. In fact, Amazon first welcomed independent sellers to sell in our marketplace 25 years ago, and today more than 60% of sales in Amazon's marketplace come from independent sellers, most of which are small and medium-sized businesses. The numbers tell a remarkable story. There are about 2 million sellers selling in Amazon store globally, and over the last 25 years, independent sellers have generated more than 2.5 trillion in sales in Amazon store. And Amazon is continuing to invest in new tools and services to help sellers compete and succeed in today's dynamic retail environment. For example, through our Seller University, sellers have access to thousands of hours of educational content in 24 languages, which helps them learn how to succeed in Amazon's marketplace, develop and market their brands, and utilize advertising tools. Further, through Amazon's Fulfilled by Amazon and international shipping programs, Businesses can export to more than 100 countries in Africa, the Americas, Asia, Australia, and Europe. And here's how it would work for a company in the Caribbean. They would sell on Amazon.com by sending items to a US fulfillment center. Amazon would then handle the shipping, fulfillment, and returns, allowing sellers to focus on their own businesses while still reaching customers around the world. And to give you a better sense of how a small business owner based in the Caribbean can build a business on Amazon, I will show you a short video.
Selling on Amazon gave us multiple levels of success, many opportunities. I am the founder of a company called Slimdown 360 Limited. I first founded this company because I was unemployed. So I thought, how do I mesh my hobby with business? And my hobby was fitness. And I realized that there was no company in the Caribbean that produced healthy food. Reaching customers was difficult, at times almost impossible. And without the internet, I could not do this. I was losing time, opportunity, and money. So I had to start finding a market overseas. That is what got me into looking at Amazon. But selling on Amazon was different. I packed the products in boxes, labeled them, and just shipped them off to Amazon. The Amazon logistics made it so easy. I could even manage it from my phone. It makes you feel a sense of achievement that you see people from California posting on social media with their product, people from New York, people from Illinois. And I am here sitting in my house in Trinidad and Tobago, a small island that maybe they've never heard of before. It makes you feel such a level of accomplishment that you've gotten this far. It was so noteworthy for a small Caribbean company to sell on Amazon. I was able to open the London Stock Exchange through it. I met the royal family. I've won so many business competitions. There were so many opportunities. And because of this level of success, I was able to then scale the company by selling it. The products moved from Slimdown 360 into a new company with investors called Pomeroon Products Limited. One of the reasons that I like doing this is because I also get to share my experience with other small companies just like where I started, letting people know there is this huge marketplace that is ready to accept your product. Connectivity isn't just about the internet, it's about opportunity. It's about giving every business an opportunity to go global, no matter how small.
Well, we're excited at Amazon about how we're able to support small businesses like Jody's. And we're looking to partner with governments, including your governments, to further ensure their success. One of the great things about our work in this area is that it has given us a unique vantage point to understand what policies stimulate cross-border e-commerce. In addition to things like streamlining customs or creating regulatory frameworks for payments, probably the most relevant and important example, at least for folks in this room, is that small businesses cannot take advantage of online marketplaces to reach customers unless they have reliable, affordable internet access. As Jody just said in the video, and I'll repeat again because it's so amazing to me to hear, connectivity isn't just about the internet, it's about opportunity. It's about giving every business an opportunity to go global no matter how small. How many other sellers around the Caribbean could build a business if they had access to reliable, affordable broadband internet? Looking at what our customers, including our sellers, need and realizing that hundreds of millions of individuals around the world do not have access to reliable, affordable broadband internet, Amazon decided in 2018 to embark on the journey of building its low Earth orbit satellite system, Project Kuiper. Project Kuiper is a $10 billion initiative to provide fast, affordable broadband to customers around the world, including in unserved and underserved areas, through a network of low Earth orbit satellites that relay data traffic to and from global network of antennas, fiber, and internet connection points on the ground. Our satellites are close to the Earth's surface, which means they can deliver high-speed service to customers and provide a high-quality broadband experience. What makes this technology particularly valuable is that satellite broadband can fill many coverage gaps in unserved and underserved areas around the world where ground-based fiber or other terrestrial networks can't reach. Our constellation has the capacity and flexibility to serve individual households, as well as schools, hospitals, businesses, government agencies, and other organizations operating in locations without reliable broadband. It can also provide 4G and 5G backhaul for telecom carriers. And importantly, LEO services like Kuiper can be quickly deployed by governments in the event of natural disasters like hurricanes. There are some real-world examples from the Caribbean where LEO satellite solutions have been used. For example, here in Jamaica, there's a nationwide initiative to bridge the digital divide in education using LEO satellites to deliver high-speed internet to rural public schools. In the St. Vincent and the Grenadines, leverage LEO satellites to restore emergency coordination centers and shelters on Union Island in the wake of Hurricane Beryl. And in 2024, Royal Caribbean became the first cruise company to deploy LEO satellite technology across its entire fleet, revolutionizing the connectivity experience for guests and crew in the Caribbean. We see Project Kuiper as an important complement to the Caribbean's existing connectivity. We know that no one solution can close the digital divide. In that sense, Kuiper is proud to play its part and serve as an additional option for governments and customers to consider as they look to drive change and create opportunities through broadband access. It is important that your governments take into account the global nature of low Earth orbit systems and design your regulations in a way that facilitates and does not impede the ability to deploy services in your territories. At Amazon, we're committed to being a partner in driving change. We know that our success is intrinsically linked to the success of the communities we serve. By combining reliable connectivity with digital skills and e-commerce, we can help create economic opportunities throughout the Caribbean region. This isn't just about business growth. It's about ensuring that all communities can participate fully in the digital economy. It's about enabling entrepreneurs to reach new markets, young people to build digital schools, and communities to create their own economic opportunities. Working together, we can build a more connected, inclusive digital future for the Caribbean. And so this is my ask for you today. Please consider the benefits that can be derived for small business and community empowerment through e-commerce and through broadband connectivity, and design your policies and regulations with those benefits in mind. We at Amazon want to be a resource for all of you. If you have any questions about how your communities can leverage our marketplace, or if you want more information about the Kuiper constellation or about LEO systems in general, we are here. And also, I just want to remind you that tomorrow night we're hosting a cocktail reception. We're going to show a brief video about Kuiper so that you can see the global scale of the undertaking and the importance of regional and international harmonizations of policies and regulations. And we hope you will all join us. Thank you so much for your attention. I know it's been a long day, and I look forward to having the chance to speak with many of you this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that, Arrow. And we're on to the final item of the day. It's been a long day. It's a short panel, and it will be moderated by the chair of our Caribbean ICT Youth Network, Mr. Tariq Mohammed, and he will discuss with his panelists a couple remaining thoughts related to transitioning from a telco to a techno. We had some of that this morning, but he will close off that conversation with these two panelists. Mr. Dane Spencer, who is the Managing Director of Smart Mobile Solutions, and Ms. Carol Robertson, Senior Business Development Partner and Government Business Lead of Liberty Caribbean. So please welcome them to the podium.
Thank you, Nigel. Good evening, everyone. I know we're all a bit tired, so we wouldn't be long. I just want to invite my two panelists. Please come and have a seat. Dane is on his way up right now. And while he's coming, I'll get started. So, over the years, we've seen transformations in the telecommunications space, from telegraphs to voice, and now to data. Developments in 5G and soon 6G, which hopefully comes to the Caribbean at some point, will drive us further away from voice and into the hands of data-centered communications. Local and regional telcos must adapt their models with the changing technologies and economies to stay relevant, maintain a solid customer base, and drive digital transformation. So here we have two panelists that Nigel introduced us earlier that represent telcos and technos. So, welcome. Can we get a quick round of applause for them? So, Carol, let's start off with Liberty. So, we've suddenly started seeing this Liberty Caribbean brand, and we know you all are no strangers to the telco area. Tell us what the journey from telecom to techno has been for you.
Loved it. And first of all, I really love the topic. Telco to techno is really interesting. When I thought about it, I recognized that we have actually, over our 160 years, always been techno. Yes, the math. Over 160 years. And we've always been techno because at the end of the day, from our inception in 1860 to now, we've always been bringing innovation and being disruptive to the markets that we serve. But it's been a long journey, vastly different to everything that we could imagine today. We started in 1960 with a one-man, John Pendleton, who supported the delivery of cable, subsea cable from Ireland to the Caribbean. Went on in 1872 to merge with an East Indian telco company, and we became the largest global telecommunications company. And actually the first and the largest. And then the journey continued. I really love the story about Alexander Graham Bell, patented the telephone in 1896, and just 8 years after that, we installed 50 telephone booths in Kingston, Jamaica. Just 8 years. So we've continued. 1991, mobile phones. 1995, internet into Cayman. And so we have continued to serve the region and, in fact, lead the region in the development of technology. So we've kind of always been techno.
Techno?
Yeah. But the difference now, technology is commonplace. The history that I just gave you is kind of like, oh, okay, that's nice. So what? Because technology is now just a part of everything we do all day, every day. We live in this space. So it's become kind of commonplace. But as a telco, as a techno-telco, we maintain our responsibility to bring technologies. So we have not stopped. We continue to be forward-looking, looking for what is going to benefit both the consumer and corporate and government, and investing in our nations across the region to bring those technologies to the fore. We won't stop. IoT is the thing or smart is the thing on everybody's tongue now, and we have already developed smart solutions for the home, smart solutions for corporate and government. So we're going.
That's good news. Wonderful to hear that. So let's hear from Dane now. Dane, as telcos transition into these technos, how can strategic partnerships help manage the cultural shift and build ecosystems necessary to accelerate growth?
All right, well, change of culture for any organization starts from leadership. And the truth is that when you're trying to drive a change like that, though the telcos have always been able to provide platform-type solutions, this now requires more partnerships in order for it to accelerate. So you're not going to build everything from scratch. You're not trying to take over that segment. So essentially now you're partnering with different technology providers that have different platforms that can generate revenue. You're moving telcos from being a general gateway or a highway for information to flow to now being that service provider where just picture a digital highway and then now you're going to create commercial spaces along the way that you can stop off. That is what is the big shift in the mindset, now becoming very customer obsessed and innovation consistently happening and being very agile about it, because it's now putting platforms in place, having people try it, then you give your feedback, then you go again, you probably implement it differently. Digital wallets will emerge. People will now start to be able to buy and buy now, pay later. You're going to hear about different services coming through that very same vein where now someone is able to provide health insurance through that same digital platform. You're going to see a shift in terms of how, because now everything is consumed from the handset. So now once you're looking at it from that standpoint where everything that you can think of can be done on your phone, then automatically you change the marketplace. Now the telcos would own the marketplace because they provide these handsets into the market. They proliferate it amongst everyone and that connects everybody. So now you can have e-commerce transactions. You can have health transactions being done. You can hold your digital health records. There's so much that is going to happen in this shift that it requires the mindset to be there to say that this is no longer about connecting people like that. This is about changing how they interact in general.
So, right, I agree with you. It's not just about the business case, but it's about culture, it's about mindset.
Yes.
And these will drive our evolutions from the telcos into the technos. So, with that in mind, Carol, based on the insights that you've gained and analyzed over the years, how have you adapted your management techniques and solutions to continue satisfying these evolving demands of the customers?
Perfect. So one of the things, we've tried to provide as many services, both in the consumer and the business space, to our customers as possible, so that they're attainable in a consolidated, integrated way. And I agree with Dane completely. Partnerships are critical in doing this. We will have firstly supported the growth, the development of our entrepreneurs by making managed IT services available to them as a managed service in the corporate sense. Because time to market is important, capital investment to start building a techno-driven company is difficult. So we will make those things available. Everything we do is a subscription-based service. Just like your cable at home, we do our IT services the same way. We've also made the transition internally. We transformed ourselves as well over these years. We've changed the way we support our staff. We're talking about performance management versus graded management. We no longer grade our teams. We encourage people to set your own goals, manage your own time to achieve them. Wonderful personal time off. We have vacation days. But you take as much time as you need when you need it, because we want everybody fresh. Parental leave for men as well as women. These are things that we have done culturally inside our organization to open the minds of our teams, foster engagement, foster collaboration. Because at the end of the day, we're creating an environment of people in the organization who represent our customers. Every person, every viewpoint is valued. We desire people not to come to a meeting to sit, but to participate and share that mindset. And then our latest rebranding, we've become colorful. And so many of our organizations would have been government entities, and we're process-driven, very process-oriented documentation. We still do that. We're very big on our ethics and our integrity, but at the same time, we've relaxed. We now have our rhythm vibes going across the region. We're fostering the Caribbean-ness of our teams. And so a lot of cultural change has taken place. And lastly, we have adopted the technologies that allow us to assess what's going on with our customers, get that feedback, which in 1860 we didn't have, but we have it now. And so we do leverage that to decide what our future look should be, how we should engage, products that we should produce, partnerships that we should indulge in. So it's been a great journey, and it's not stopping. Transformation is the new change.
And change begins at home internally.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. There we go. Okay.
That's my water reminder.
And Dane, last question for you before we close off on this panel. How will this transition unlock new monetization opportunities and streams for revenue and support sustainable business models that go beyond just pure connectivity?
Well, let's look at it. We're moving from a model where you're selling talk time and you're selling connectivity, broadband, to now where you probably infuse embedded finance models which allow you to have installment plans, increase your ARPU through insurance payment plans, continue, build on top of that where you can now extend buy now, pay later loans through the same framework. We're now moving into a realm where infrastructure as a service, as was mentioned earlier, I heard another presenter mention it, that's actually very, very popular in terms of increasing the overall margins within that space. And now that embedded feature allows for you to be that much connected to your customer, and that now increases the revenue stream over a longer lifespan because you have connectivity, the hardware, and the services that are all bundled in to that consumer. And it makes it more manageable for them because it now becomes just a monthly bill. So now you remove the CapEx, you create OpEx, you now actually have service-driven lines of revenue that come from all facets of your business. Initially, you'd have to buy the PBX, buy the servers, buy the endpoints. Now you could actually get that all bundled in as a service. So when we're looking at the landscape and how many different ways that monetization will occur, because it must happen, I think it's only highlighting the need to push forward towards more platform-type revenue models in general.
Right, so not just connectivity, but infrastructure as a service, connectivity from that holistic point of view and meeting the needs of the customers from different revenue streams, different products and services, right?
Yes, and of course we have to be customer obsessed. So we have to start from there and what they want and then build the solutions around that.
What we are also bundling into our offerings, our subscription-based offerings, we're actually partnering a lot with application developers, and we're also incorporating the entrepreneurs in that regard because there are some quick go-to-market solutions available there, but we're also working with more subject matter experts. We mentioned healthcare earlier. It's an area that we are really enjoying participating in, delivering solutions across the Caribbean to automate all aspects of healthcare and the patient journey. And we're ring fencing, as you said, the mobile phone being used by the consumer for business purposes, personal purposes, healthcare purposes, banking and everything. It's just one complete offering now that joins everything for our e-environment.
Right, so it sounds here, what I'm hearing from you all, is that we are both customer obsessed, right? And we are working together to ensure that our technos are fit for purpose and customer driven. So with that, I just want to thank our panelists for joining us this afternoon. I know that I promised a short panel, and I think we had some very good discussions. Yes. So please let me hand back to Nigel and give them a round of applause as we get to wrap up. Thank you.
Wait. Thank you very much, Tariq and panel. We do have the gifts for the panel.
I don't think you're that one. No. You acknowledge the sponsors tonight.
Okay.
Ceremony.
All right.
You really do need to be able to.
All right.
No problem. Anything to say besides?
No.
Okay.
No.
You just talk or? Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Give a round of applause again, please, for our panelists. So that's the last session for today. I thank you so much for staying with us for the entire day. This will bring the session to a close. I just have a few housekeeping matters. I just wanted to, we can display the program for tomorrow very quickly so that we can just let our participants know what's happening tomorrow. Also, the opening ceremony is right back in this room at 7:30. It was scheduled for 7, but it's going to be delayed by half an hour, so we're starting at 7:30. For those of you who need to pop back over to the Pegasus Hotel to refresh, you have about 2 hours to, well, an hour and a half, because we do need to come back over here, and the shuttles will be there to take you. So once we close, we're going to ask you very kindly to please exit the room as quickly as possible so that we can begin flipping the room and reconfiguring it for the opening ceremony. So we start back here at 7:30 this evening. Thank you so much for your time. There's a QR code up for the evaluation, and I will invite you to check the website for all of the parallel sessions that are happening tomorrow. There is a juice bar as well for those who are staying here or for those who want to stay on. There's a juice bar as you exit the room to your left, and you can hang out there as well until we commence. So thank you all very much for your attention. Have a good evening. See you back at 7:30.